The stars stretched endlessly across the void, a tapestry of silent light that had witnessed countless civilizations rise and fall. Among those lights, a new shadow moved, a shadow that threatened to blot out everything in its path. The humans had been watching for weeks, scanning every signal, analyzing every maneuver. Now, as the first ships of the Zoranth fleet entered the sector, the tension on the human side reached a palpable peak. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, her hands resting lightly on the railing as her eyes tracked the holographic display in front of her. The display shimmered with the positions of every enemy ship, every asteroid, and every gravitational anomaly in the system. The Zoranth were proud of their fleet, calling it their greatest assembly of warships, each one bristling with energy weapons, shields, and drones. From every report and every intercepted communication, the humans knew these aliens believed themselves unstoppable. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. Pride and overconfidence were dangerous enemies in their own right, and humans had a way of turning them against those who underestimated them. She turned to her officers, each one tense but ready. Lieutenant Mara Kesh, her second in command, adjusted her sleeve nervously, her fingers brushing the edge of a control panel. She had spent years training for moments like this, but no simulation had ever fully prepared her for the sight of 1,000 alien warships advancing like a living storm. "Status report," Ilara said calmly, her voice carrying authority without raising tension. "All scanners online," replied Chief Engineer Rick Holt, his tone steady despite the tightness around his eyes. "Enemy formations appear rigid. They're moving like a single organism. Sensors show no signs of stealth or evasive maneuvers yet. They are confident." Ilara nodded. That confidence was their weapon and their weakness. Humans had always thrived where enemies relied too much on numbers, on technology, on predictability. In every skirmish, in every battle, human crews had found ways to turn the rules upside down. The Zoranth had never faced humans in numbers, only in isolated encounters where human ingenuity often outweighed firepower. "Keep our fleet in shadow," Ilara ordered. "We'll let them think we're small, scattered, and weak. Let them underestimate us. Let them feel the comfort of overconfidence before we remind them how dangerous humans can be." The Intrepid moved slowly, blending into the dark edges of a nearby asteroid belt. Smaller human vessels followed, weaving between rocks, magnetic fields, and radiation clouds that would make any automated navigation system falter. The Zoranth cruisers, large and rigid, maintained formation, their weapons glowing faintly as they scanned for life, for resistance, for anything that might challenge their march toward domination. Ilara walked the bridge, her boots soft against the metal floor. She had been in command of the Intrepid for over a decade, a veteran of countless missions in hostile space. Yet even she felt a flicker of tension. Not fear, never fear, but the weight of responsibility. Every ship in her fleet, every life depended on her decisions. And today the decisions would not be simple. She paused beside the tactical display and ran her fingers over the projection. Tiny human vessels moved like shadows around the massive alien ships. They were small, but they were clever. Each one carried weapons that were crude by Zoranth standards, yet deadly in the right hands. Magnetic pulse bombs, gravitational disruptors, and improvised torpedoes lay ready for deployment. The humans did not have the firepower to match the Zoranth blow for blow, but they had tactics, strategy, and unpredictability. And sometimes, unpredictability could be more lethal than the strongest weapon. "Commander," said Lieutenant Kesh, pointing at a blip on the display. "A Zoranth scouting vessel is approaching the outer perimeter. They've detected the magnetic distortions. I think they're searching for us." Ilara's eyes narrowed. She could have fired immediately, revealing their presence, but that was not their plan. "Let it come," she said. "We want them to see nothing, make them curious, make them think there's nothing here." The scout vessel drifted closer, scanning, sending pulses through the asteroid belt. It was large enough to hold a crew and drones, yet small enough to navigate the tighter formations that the human fleet now occupied. Inside, the humans held their breath. They were not afraid, but they were keenly aware that detection could trigger the first wave of the Zoranth attack. Then, with a flash almost imperceptible to the human eye, the scout's sensors overloaded. A carefully timed electromagnetic pulse from a hidden human ship caused the alien vessel's systems to stutter. Its engines shuddered, its shields flickered, and then it spun out of control, colliding with a small asteroid. The resulting explosion was contained but visible, a tiny spark of defiance against the looming darkness of the Zorinth fleet. Ilara allowed herself a satisfied nod. "That's one," she said softly, almost as if whispering a secret to the stars themselves. "And the others will follow." The next hours were tense. Human ships darted in and out of shadow, striking swiftly, then vanishing before the Zorinth could respond effectively. The aliens attempted to adapt, shifting formations, deploying drones, and recalibrating sensors. Yet every move they made played into the humans' hands. Gravity wells, asteroid clusters, and radiation pockets became traps rather than obstacles. Ships that should have been invulnerable faltered, slowed, or were forced to scatter. In the mess of calculations and algorithms, the humans found opportunity. Ilara's fleet was small, but it was agile. Every decision she made on the bridge rippled through the system. Every maneuver, every feint, every diversion was a calculated risk. The humans were learning as they went, as they always had. The Zorinth had underestimated them, and that underestimation would be costly. Hours turned into a cycle of probing and counter-probing. The humans had taken minimal losses, while the Zorinth suffered more than they realized. Behind the calm efficiency of their massive fleet, cracks began to appear. One cruiser miscalculated an asteroid's trajectory and grazed a rock, tearing through part of its hull. Another lost synchronization with the main formation, leaving it vulnerable to a daring human strike. The humans struck when the aliens least expected it, exploiting every flaw, every hesitation. Amidst the tension, Ilara felt the hum of pride in her crew. They were young, some barely out of training programs, others seasoned veterans hardened by years of fighting in the void. Each one moved with precision, executing her orders without hesitation. They trusted her, and she trusted them. That trust was a weapon more powerful than any laser or torpedo. She turned toward the communications console. "Open a channel," she said. The crew looked at her, puzzled. "Open a channel? To whom? To the enemy?" "Yes," she said, her eyes glinting. "To the Zorinth." "Let them hear us." Static crackled across the speakers, then a voice emerged, formal, cold, and alien in its inflection. "Humans, you are detected. You cannot hide. Surrender and your lives may be spared." Ilara's lips curved into a faint smile. "This is Commander Ilara Voss of the human fleet. We see you too. And you should know, we never hide. But you might want to reconsider how confident you feel. You may have the numbers, the technology, and the firepower, but there's one thing you lack: imagination." There was silence on the other end, then more static. The Zorinth did not know whether to laugh or attack first. That hesitation, that pause, was all Ilara needed. She returned to the tactical display. "Positions for ambush," she ordered. "I want the next wave to walk right into it. Stealth protocols, magnetic shielding, all fighters on high alert. The moment they enter the kill zone, we strike. No mistakes." Minutes passed like hours. The Zorinth cruisers, massive and imposing, continued their advance, unaware of the web of traps lying ahead. They moved with confidence, each ship a testament to their pride. And humans thrived on pride, on underestimation, on the arrogance of those who thought victory was inevitable. The first signs of success came quietly. A distant explosion, a flicker on the tactical map, another alien ship miscalculated, another drone lost. The humans did not cheer. There was no time for celebration. Every small victory was a signal, a step in a larger strategy that could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. Ilara walked the bridge again, feeling the rhythm of the battle, sensing the subtle shifts in energy and momentum. She was not just commanding ships. She was orchestrating a symphony of chaos, each human vessel a note played at the perfect time. And the Zorinth, for all their technology and numbers, could not anticipate the music humans created. Hours turned into a tense night in the void, a night without stars, without time, without rest. Yet the humans remained vigilant. Every patrol, every maneuver, every feint built toward a single truth. They were not prey. They were predators in their own right, and the greatest hunters were often the most underestimated. By the time the first faint light of distant suns touched the edge of the sector, the humans had achieved something remarkable. The Zorinth fleet had moved as expected, fallen into traps, and revealed weaknesses that no one in their civilization had ever acknowledged publicly. And still, the humans were intact, ready and watching. Ilara allowed herself a moment to breathe. The battle had only just begun, but already the humans had proven one undeniable fact. Numbers and technology alone did not make a fleet unbeatable. Courage, creativity, and the willingness to defy expectation could level any playing field. "Prepare for the next phase," she ordered, her voice steady. "They think they understand us. They have no idea what is coming." Her crew moved with renewed energy, adjusting shields, repositioning ships, and checking weapons. There was no fear here, only focus, determination, and the quiet thrill of facing the impossible and winning. As the Zorinth fleet continued its approach, oblivious to the traps laid before it, the humans of the intrepid fleet watched, calculated, and waited. They were small, they were outgunned, but they were human, and that alone made them deadly. Above the bridge, the stars seemed to pulse, as if aware of the clash about to unfold. In the endless void, one truth echoed silently but powerfully. Humans did not back down, humans adapted, and humans, no matter the odds, always found a way to survive. And survive they would, not just for themselves, but for every world that had once underestimated them. The game was set. The first move had been made. The humans were ready, and the Zorinth were about to learn the cost of underestimating the unpredictable. The humans waited, cloaked in shadow, as the Zorinth fleet moved deeper into the asteroid belt. The aliens were confident, rigid in formation, and fully convinced that their numbers alone could crush any resistance. They believed that humans were nothing more than scattered prey, weak and disorganized. But the humans thrived on defying expectations, and every ship under Commander Alara Voss's command was a thread in a web designed to entangle the unsuspecting fleet. Lieutenant Mara Kesh sat at her console, eyes darting between sensor readouts. "Commander, the outer perimeter is fully engaged. Several Zorinth cruisers are within range of our pulse emitters. They're starting to slow slightly, reacting to disturbances in the magnetic fields." Alara nodded. She could feel the tension across the fleet like a physical weight, yet there was a thrill in it, a recognition that humans excelled in moments when the odds were against them. "Good," she said. "Maintain stealth. Let them feel secure, then strike where it hurts most. Remember, we don't match them. We outsmart them." Across the bridge, small holograms of human fighters zipped through the projected asteroid field. Each pilot moved with precision, weaving in and out of the massive shadows of Zorinth cruisers, invisible until they struck. These were not just soldiers. They were improvisers, thinkers, daredevils who could bend physics to their will. And tonight, every one of them would have to. The first human strike was almost invisible. A fighter veered into the blind spot of a Zorinth destroyer, releasing a series of improvised missiles designed to disrupt shields and overload sensors. The destroyer shuddered violently as its shields flickered and died for a brief instant. In that moment, the fighter unleashed a magnetic pulse directly into the cruiser's core. Systems malfunctioned, the hull warped, and alarms screamed across the Zorinth communication network. Alara felt a surge of satisfaction. Each successful strike was small, precise, and calculated. The Zorinth would adjust, they would adapt, but humans always found ways to force them into mistakes. "Excellent," she said softly. "Keep them guessing, keep them moving." As the hours passed, the battle became a deadly dance. The Zorinth, massive and imposing, were forced to scatter through the asteroid field, each ship moving cautiously to avoid the traps the humans had laid. Every detonation of a cruiser or drone sent shockwaves across the field, pushing smaller rocks into dangerous trajectories. Yet the humans thrived in chaos. They used the debris, the radiation pockets, and the gravitational anomalies as weapons as much as the torpedoes and disruptors on their ships. In the midst of this chaos, a scout vessel broke formation, attempting to flank the human fleet. Lieutenant Kesh spotted it instantly. "Commander, one of their scouts is moving out of formation. It looks like they're trying to map our positions for the main fleet." Alara's lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Perfect," she said. "Lead it into the trap near the nebula. Make it think it's finding a weak spot." The scout followed the bait, slipping past small human vessels that feigned vulnerability. As it neared the nebula, sensors warned of the charged particles and electromagnetic fluctuations that humans had secretly intensified over the past hours. The scout, relying on algorithms for navigation, faltered. Its shields flickered, systems misread the nebula's energy fields, and the vessel drifted helplessly. A human fighter streaked past at near-light speed, releasing a gravity disruptor that tore through the scout's hull. The vessel imploded silently, leaving only a trail of ionized debris drifting through the void. On the Intrepid, the bridge erupted in quiet, controlled satisfaction. Each strike was not just a kill. It was a lesson in improvisation, a demonstration of human ingenuity against technological arrogance. Yet Alara knew better than to celebrate. The Zoranth fleet was massive, their remaining ships still powerful, and they were learning from every failure. Every tactic the humans employed became data for their enemy. They adapted quickly, shifting formations and recalibrating sensors to detect human interference. "Commander," said Rick Holt, leaning over his console, "they're starting to coordinate countermeasures. Sensors show increased shield synchronization and energy distribution among cruisers. They're learning from each strike." Alara's eyes hardened. That was expected. The Zoranth were intelligent and relentless, but so were humans, and unpredictability was a weapon that no algorithm could fully calculate. "Good," she said. "Let them learn. Let them think they are gaining the advantage. Then we remind them why they underestimated us." The next phase of the plan required patience and precision. Humans had split their forces, some acting as decoys, others lying in wait in hidden pockets of the asteroid field. Every movement was a calculated risk. One wrong move, one miscalculation could spell disaster. Yet in every human mind on the bridge there was no fear, only focus, only determination, only the thrill of defying the impossible. Suddenly, alarms blared across the Intrepid. A squadron of Zoranth drones had detected the decoy fleet and moved in for an attack. Human fighters darted in, performing maneuvers that defied conventional logic, drawing the drones into tight clusters where gravity disruptors awaited. The drones collided in massive explosions, their hulls shattered into countless fragments. The void lit up briefly as debris scattered, like tiny fireworks marking human ingenuity. Alara watched calmly, issuing orders with precision. "Divert shields to the left flank. Launch interceptors from Bay 3. Prepare pulse missiles." The bridge moved like a single organism, each officer executing her commands with practiced efficiency. Humans were small, but they were coordinated, adaptable, and relentless. As the battle raged, the Zoranth command began to realize that humans were not merely reacting. They were controlling the battlefield. Every ambush, every diversion, every feint was calculated to maximize chaos and exploit arrogance. For all their technology, the Zoranth struggled to predict human behavior, and that unpredictability was lethal. Lieutenant Kesh's voice cut through the noise. "Commander, they're adjusting formations. They've split their fleet into 3 main groups." "I think they're trying to encircle us." Alara considered the display. The Zoranth believed splitting their fleet would allow them to corner the humans, but in reality they were playing into her hands. "Good," she said. "Draw them closer to the nebula. Use the ionized clouds to our advantage. Let them scatter. Let them think they're in control." The next few hours became a symphony of controlled chaos. Human ships darted in and out, striking from unexpected angles, using every environmental factor as a weapon. Asteroids became shields, nebula clouds masked movements, and charged particles disrupted alien communications. Each successful maneuver was a small victory, and each misstep by the Zoranth was another opportunity to strike. By the time the main fleet reached the heart of the asteroid belt, the humans had achieved something remarkable. The Zoranth ships, confident and rigid, were fragmented, struggling to maintain formation amidst the unpredictable obstacles humans had manipulated. Their systems, powerful but rigid, faltered against the creative improvisation of human strategy. Alara allowed herself a brief smile. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the point where humans transitioned from defenders to predators. Every move, every strike, every calculated risk had led to this turning point. The Zoranth thought they were hunting humans, but in truth, they were being lured into a carefully orchestrated trap. "Prepare for the next strike," she ordered, her voice calm but firm. "We hit them where they think they're safe. Remember speed, precision, and unpredictability. They cannot counter what they cannot anticipate." Rick Holt adjusted the energy distribution on the Intrepid, ensuring shields were reinforced where needed and weapons were ready to unleash at a moment's notice. Lieutenant Kesh coordinated the smaller fighters, each pilot poised for the attack that could decide the day. The humans were ready, But more importantly, they were united in purpose, in strategy, and in courage. The first salvo of human weapons struck with terrifying efficiency. Torpedoes moved silently through the void, exploiting weak points in the Zoranth shields. Fighters weaved through defensive fire, releasing gravity disruptors and magnetic pulses that crippled engines and jammed targeting systems. The Zoranth, for all their power, were forced to react, to scramble, to retreat. Ilara observed the carnage, her mind focused on the next move. Every destroyed cruiser, every faltering drone, every miscalculated maneuver by the Zoranth was data. Humans learned quickly, adapted faster, and struck harder. What the aliens perceived as chaos was, in reality, a meticulously planned campaign to weaken their confidence, fragment their forces, and create openings for decisive strikes. Hours blurred as the battle intensified. Humans pressed every advantage, striking swiftly and vanishing before the Zoranth could counter. Each victory, no matter how small, chipped away at the enemy's morale. Yet the humans remained disciplined, careful not to overextend, aware that overconfidence could be just as deadly as fear. By the end of the cycle, the Zoranth fleet had suffered more losses than they had anticipated. Dozens of cruisers were damaged, scattered, or destroyed. Their rigid formations were shattered, and confusion rippled through their command network. The humans, though smaller in number and lighter in firepower, had demonstrated one undeniable truth. Ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability could outweigh size and technology. Ilara turned to her crew. "We've shown them we're not prey," she said quietly. "We've shown them humans are more than what they expect, but the fight is not over. This is just the beginning. We keep them guessing, keep them scattered, and keep them afraid. That is how humans win." As the stars stretched silently overhead, the humans prepared for the next phase of the battle. They were battered, yes, but unbroken. The Zoranth might have called this their greatest fleet, but the humans knew the truth. Confidence, numbers, and technology meant nothing without adaptability, creativity, and courage. And humans had all three in abundance. The human fleet drifted silently in the shadow of the nebula, waiting. Commander Ilara Voss knew that the Zoranth would not give up easily. Their arrogance had been wounded, but pride drove them forward, making them reckless. The humans, small and seemingly outmatched, had already proven that they could strike where the aliens thought themselves invincible. Yet the hardest challenge lay ahead, turning the tide of the battle entirely from defense to domination. Lieutenant Mara Kesh leaned over the tactical display, her eyes scanning every flicker of alien activity. "Commander, they're regrouping," she said. "Their remaining cruisers are forming a crescent formation. They're attempting a coordinated assault from 3 directions. If they break through our positions, it could split our fleet." Ilara's gaze hardened. She had expected this. The Zoranth were smart enough to learn, adaptive enough to respond to failure, but not fast enough to anticipate human unpredictability. "Good," she replied calmly. "Let them attack. Let them think they are gaining control. We'll use their coordination against them." The humans adjusted their formations. Smaller fighters darted among the rocks, while the larger ships used the nebula's energy to mask their presence. The charged particles in the cloud caused Zoranth energy weapons to flicker and misfire. Every move was calculated, every action designed to exploit the aliens, reliance on rigid systems and coordination. Rick Holt, chief engineer of the Intrepid, watched the energy readings carefully. "Commander, the nebula is holding up as expected. Their shields are weakening under the electromagnetic interference. If we time our attack right, we can split their crescent and trap them." Ilara nodded. "Prepare all vessels. When I give the signal, we strike simultaneously. Speed, precision, and unpredictability. Remember, they cannot counter what they cannot anticipate." The Zoranth approached, confident, their crescent formation looming like a wall across the void. The humans remained hidden, invisible, patient. As the enemy drew closer, small human fighters darted in and out, striking at the flanks, drawing fire, and then vanishing into the shadows. The aliens were frustrated, unable to predict these strikes. Suddenly, Ilara gave the order. "Now!" The human fleet erupted from the shadows, attacking from multiple angles at once. Torpedoes streaked through the void, small fighters struck with precision, and gravity disruptors tore apart the enemy formation. The Zoranth, caught off guard, faltered. Their shields flickered, engines misfired, and coordination broke down. One cruiser, massive and heavily armed, was hit by a series of magnetic pulses that overloaded its systems. It spun uncontrollably, crashing into an asteroid and exploding in a brilliant display of fire and debris. Another vessel, attempting to flank the humans, was intercepted by human fighters that released gravity mines, causing it to break formation and collide with a smaller cruiser. Ilara's eyes never left the tactical display. Each move, each explosion was a part of the symphony she orchestrated. "Keep pressure on them," she commanded. "Focus on their flanks, don't let them recover." The Zoranth tried to respond, redirecting energy to shields and deploying drones to intercept the human attackers. But the humans were unpredictable, moving in ways no algorithm could predict. Every attempt by the aliens to regain control only opened new vulnerabilities. The nebula's energy interfered with their communications, leaving them fragmented and disoriented. Lieutenant Kesh reported, "Commander, their formation is breaking. Several ships are isolated. We have openings to strike at their command vessels." Ilara smiled faintly. This was what they had been waiting for. The Zoranth had underestimated humans from the start, believing that sheer size and firepower were enough. Now exposed and fragmented, they were vulnerable to focused attacks. "Target the command vessels," she ordered. "Precision strikes only. Take them out and the rest will fall apart." The human fleet moved with deadly efficiency. Fighters darted around larger ships, disabling weapons and engines with carefully timed attacks. Torpedoes found weak points in shields, and gravity disruptors tore through hulls. Each hit was precise, calculated, and devastating. The Zoranth command vessels, once the heart of their fleet, were now under siege. Inside one command cruiser, panic began to spread. Alien officers shouted orders, trying to regroup, but their systems were failing. Sensors were jammed, weapons misfiring, and communication with the rest of the fleet was disrupted. The humans had turned the battlefield into a trap, exploiting every weakness and forcing the aliens to react, not act. Ilara observed, calm and focused. "Maintain formation," she instructed. "Don't overextend. We control the battlefield, but we must remain vigilant." The battle raged for hours. Human ingenuity and adaptability clashed against Zoranth technology and pride. The aliens had underestimated their opponents at every turn, and now their mistakes were compounded. Ships collided, drones exploded, and massive cruisers were torn apart by a combination of human tactics and environmental hazards. A particularly massive cruiser attempted to retreat through the nebula, hoping to regroup with remaining forces. Human fighters anticipated the move, intercepting it and releasing a combination of torpedoes and gravity disruptors. The cruiser was disabled, drifting helplessly before exploding against a dense cluster of asteroids. The destruction was silent but absolute, a testament to human precision. Rick Holt reported, "Commander, their fleet is fragmenting. Several cruisers are isolated and exposed." "This is our chance to decisively strike," Ilara nodded. "Coordinate all units, focus on isolated targets, make them pay for underestimating humans." The human fleet moved in perfect coordination. Each vessel struck simultaneously, overwhelming the isolated Zoranth ships. Magnetic pulses disrupted shields, torpedoes tore through hulls, and fighter squadrons executed daring maneuvers that left the aliens unable to respond. One by one, the enemy ships were disabled or destroyed. Even as the battle reached its peak, Ilara remained calm. She knew that the fight was not just about destroying ships, it was about breaking the enemy's confidence. The Zoranth had believed they were invincible, and now their arrogance was their downfall. Lieutenant Kesh reported, her voice tense with excitement, "Commander, the majority of their fleet is in disarray. Their command structure is compromised. We have the advantage." Ilara's gaze was steady. "Good, but remain cautious. They are dangerous even in disarray. We finish this carefully, methodically, strike with precision, not recklessness." The humans pressed their advantage. Torpedoes and disruptors disabled remaining ships, while fighters harassed and distracted. The Zoranth were forced into defensive maneuvers, unable to coordinate or respond effectively. The battlefield had shifted completely. The humans, once on the defensive, now dominated the engagement. In the midst of the chaos, a Zoranth command vessel attempted a final desperate strike at the Intrepid. Its weapons powered up, beams of energy surging toward the human flagship. Ilara remained calm. "Divert all shields to the forward quadrant," she ordered. Engage countermeasures and fire interceptors. We will not be intimidated. The human fleet reacted instantly. Interceptors moved to intercept the beams, while gravity disruptors and torpedoes struck the command vessel's engines. The alien ship faltered, its weapons misfiring, and it drifted helplessly before exploding spectacularly in a cloud of fire and debris. Silence followed the destruction, broken only by the hum of human engines and the faint crackle of residual energy in the nebula. The Zorinth fleet, once proud and imposing, was shattered. Their arrogance had led them into a trap from which they could not recover. Ilara allowed herself a moment to breathe. She had guided her fleet through chaos, through danger, and through the arrogance of an enemy that thought itself unbeatable. The humans had turned the tide of the battle, proving once again that courage, ingenuity, and adaptability could overcome even the most powerful foes. Lieutenant Kesh turned to her, eyes wide with awe. "Commander, we did it. We've taken control of the battlefield." Ilara nodded, though her focus remained sharp. "We have," she said, "but the fight isn't over. We need to secure our position and prepare for any remaining threats. The Zorinth may be scattered, but they are not finished." The human fleet moved cautiously through the asteroid field, collecting survivors, repairing damaged vessels, and preparing for further action. The Zorinth, demoralized and fragmented, were forced to retreat, their once great fleet reduced to a shadow of its former strength. Ilara observed the stars through the viewport, feeling a quiet satisfaction. The humans had not just survived, they had prevailed. They had demonstrated the power of adaptability, the strength of coordination, and the value of thinking differently. The Zorinth had called it their greatest fleet, but humans had proven it was no match for ingenuity and courage. As the fleet regrouped, Ilara addressed her officers. "This battle will be remembered not for the size of the enemy we faced, but for what humans can achieve when we refuse to be intimidated. We have shown them that numbers and technology are not enough. Creativity, courage, and determination matter more." The crew nodded, understanding the weight of her words. They had witnessed history being made, not through overwhelming power, but through strategy, intelligence, and the human spirit. Ilara turned back to the tactical display. The Zorinth were in retreat, but not yet gone. She knew they would return, and when they did, the humans needed to be ready. But for now, victory was theirs. They had turned the tide, struck decisively, and proven that even the most powerful fleet could be challenged by courage and ingenuity. "Prepare for the next phase," she ordered. "We consolidate our gains, repair our vessels, and prepare for whatever comes next. Humans have won today, but we must remain vigilant. The universe does not forgive complacency." As the human fleet moved through the void, battered but unbroken, the stars stretched endlessly above them. They had faced an enemy that believed itself unbeatable and had prevailed. And in doing so, they had demonstrated the undeniable truth. Humans were never to be underestimated, and ingenuity and courage could topple even the greatest fleets in the galaxy. The void was quiet, almost eerily so, as the human fleet regrouped among the remnants of the shattered asteroid field. Commander Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the Intrepid, her gaze fixed on the stars and the small, flickering blips on the tactical display. The Zorinth fleet, once feared as the mightiest armada in known space, had been broken, scattered, and humiliated. Yet Ilara knew better than to assume the fight was truly over. Even in retreat, the aliens were dangerous, their pride a fire that could ignite again at any moment. Lieutenant Mara Kesh adjusted the sensors, scanning the surrounding space for any hidden vessels or remaining threats. "Commander," she said, "we've accounted for most of the enemy. Only a few scattered cruisers remain, attempting to regroup and escape the nebula. Their shields are weakened and engines damaged. They won't hold long." Ilara nodded. She had already calculated the next step. The humans would not simply wait for the Zorinth to flee. That would allow the aliens to recover and return with reinforcements. Instead, they would strike decisively, finishing what they had started, leaving no doubt in the galaxy about human capability. "Prepare for pursuit," she ordered. "We take the fight to them. No mercy, but no waste either. Precision and efficiency. Target their command structures first, then mop up the rest." The fleet moved silently, small and agile against the vastness of space. The remaining Zorinth ships tried to maintain formation, but panic had spread through their ranks. Confused and demoralized officers shouted orders, attempting to regroup isolated units while avoiding the ambushes they now suspected. But it was too late. The humans had anticipated their moves, turning every attempted retreat into a trap. From the bridge of the Intrepid, Alara watched the first wave of pursuit unfold. Small human fighters darted in, striking isolated Zoranth vessels with torpedoes and pulse disruptors. Gravity mines tore through engines and shields, while the heavier human cruisers unleashed precision volleys of electromagnetic pulses that crippled the remaining ships. Every attack was coordinated, calculated, and lethal. The Zoranth had assumed that their size and technology would protect them. They had underestimated humans once again, and it would cost them dearly. One massive Zoranth cruiser attempted a desperate maneuver, banking sharply to avoid a cluster of asteroids while trying to regroup with nearby ships. Human fighters anticipated the move instantly, surrounding it from multiple angles. Torpedoes struck simultaneously, exploiting weak points in its hull. Systems overloaded, energy surges erupted along the ship's exterior, and alarms screamed as the vessel began to break apart from within. Alara allowed herself a small, controlled smile. Every failure, every collapse of enemy morale, every destroyed cruiser was a testament to human ingenuity and courage. "Focus fire on their command cruiser," she instructed. "End this quickly. The rest will follow." Lieutenant Kesh's fingers danced across the controls. Engaging now, targeting systems aligned, torpedoes ready, fighters in attack vector. The command cruiser, massive and imposing, had been the nerve center of the Zoranth fleet. Its destruction would shatter the remaining cohesion among the alien forces. Human torpedoes streaked silently through space, guided by both AI precision and human improvisation. Fighters flanked the cruiser, drawing fire and distracting its defensive systems. Gravity disruptors and magnetic pulses hit simultaneously, overwhelming shields and damaging engines. Inside the cruiser, panic erupted. Officers barked orders, trying desperately to maintain control, but the attacks were relentless. Weapons misfired, shields flickered, and communication lines went down. The ship, once the symbol of Zoranth might, was now helpless, drifting as the humans closed in for the final strike. From the bridge of the Intrepid, Alara issued the final command: "Fire everything. Make sure it cannot rise again." The volleys struck with devastating precision. The cruiser shuddered violently as torpedoes pierced its hull, disrupting core systems. Energy surges tore through the vessel, and explosions rippled across its surface. In a spectacular burst of fire and debris, the command cruiser disintegrated, leaving only fragments scattered across the void. The remaining Zoranth ships, witnessing the destruction of their command center, faltered completely. Their formation collapsed, and confusion spread like wildfire. Some attempted to flee, others hesitated, unsure where to turn. Human fighters struck swiftly, targeting engines and weapons. Torpedoes disabled shields, and gravity disruptors left cruisers drifting helplessly. One by one, the alien ships succumbed, their once mighty fleet reduced to scattered wrecks. Alara's crew moved with unwavering precision. Every ship had a role, every fighter had an assignment, and every maneuver had been rehearsed and anticipated. Humans were smaller, yes, and lighter in firepower, but they were coordinated, adaptable, and relentless. The aliens had relied on predictability and numbers. The humans relied on ingenuity, courage, and unpredictability. And in this, humans were unbeatable. Hours passed as the final Zoranth units were neutralized. The human fleet advanced systematically, leaving no room for recovery. Each encounter was swift, calculated, and decisive. The void, once threatened by the overwhelming shadow of the Zoranth fleet, now belonged to the humans. Silence settled, broken only by the hum of engines and the faint crackle of residual energy in the nebula. Lieutenant Kesh approached Alara, her voice filled with awe. "Commander, they're all gone. The fleet is destroyed or disabled. We've done it." Alara nodded, her gaze calm but intense. "Yes," she said. "We've done more than survive. We've proven that humans cannot be underestimated. But remember, vigilance is key. Even scattered, the Zoranth are dangerous. They will regroup eventually. For now, we consolidate and secure our position." The crew moved to gather survivors, repair damaged ships, and ensure that every vessel was accounted for. The battle had taken its toll, but the humans were unbroken. They had faced an enemy that believed itself invincible and had triumphed. And in the aftermath, a quiet pride filled the fleet, a recognition that they had achieved something extraordinary. Alara addressed her officers. This will be remembered, not for the size of the enemy we faced, but for the ingenuity, courage, and coordination that allowed us to prevail. Humans have shown that numbers and technology alone do not determine victory. Imagination, courage, and adaptability do. Today, the galaxy witnessed what humans are capable of. Across the fleet, ships adjusted course, tending to repairs and preparing for future engagement. The remnants of the Zoranth forces were either destroyed or scattered, retreating in disarray. Their pride had been shattered, their confidence broken, and their fleet humbled. Humans had not only survived, they had dominated. Ilara allowed herself a moment of reflection. The cost had been high, but the outcome was worth every risk, every maneuver, every daring strike. Humans had once again proven that they could face overwhelming odds and emerge victorious, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to accept defeat. Lieutenant Kesh broke the silence. "Commander, should we broadcast our victory?" Ilara considered for a moment. Then she activated the communication channels, sending a clear, concise message to the scattered Zoranth remnants. "This is Commander Ilara Voss of the human fleet. Your greatest fleet has been broken. Retreat, regroup, and know that humanity will never be underestimated. We are vigilant, we are relentless, and we are everywhere." Silence followed the transmission, as if the void itself absorbed the weight of her words. The Zoranth had witnessed the destruction of their mightiest fleet, and would carry the memory of human defiance for years to come. Across star systems, whispers of human audacity would spread, reshaping the perception of a species that others had once assumed could be dominated easily. Ilara watched the stars, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. The humans had not just fought. They had triumphed against overwhelming odds, turning the tables on an enemy that thought itself invincible. The nebula, once a shadow of danger, now framed a tableau of human victory, a reminder that courage and creativity could overcome even the most formidable force. The fleet regrouped, engines humming steadily. Repairs were underway, fighters were refueled, and the crew prepared for the inevitable return of the Zoranth, though now the balance of fear had shifted. The humans had demonstrated the full extent of their resolve, and any future confrontation would carry the knowledge that humans were not to be underestimated. Ilara turned to her officers, her voice calm but resolute. "We have done more than survive. We have shown the galaxy that humans are a force of ingenuity, courage, and determination. Today, the Zoranth learned the truth. They were mistaken. They called it their greatest fleet. We called it target practice." The words hung in the air, a quiet declaration of triumph and defiance. The human crew, battered but unbroken, understood the significance. They had faced the impossible and had emerged victorious, proving once again that even against overwhelming odds, humanity could endure, adapt, and prevail. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the battle that had reshaped the perception of humans across the galaxy. For Commander Ilara Voss and her fleet, this was not just a victory. It was a statement, a reminder that in the vastness of space, courage and ingenuity were the ultimate weapons, and humans were masters of both. As the fleet moved toward safer sectors to regroup and repair, a sense of quiet pride settled across the crew. The battle had been fierce, the odds overwhelming, yet they had triumphed. Humanity had turned fear into strategy, weakness into strength, and defiance into victory. The galaxy would remember this day, not for the ships that were lost, but for the spirit that refused to be broken. Ilara remained on the bridge, gazing at the scattered wreckage of the Zoranth fleet. Her heart was steady, her mind alert, and her spirit resolute. The humans had proven that they could face any challenge, no matter how great, and emerge victorious. The stars, silent and infinite, bore witness to this truth, and in that endless void, one certainty remained: humans would never be underestimated again.